You're looking every part the centerpiece, Rickter razzed Alex as she joined him at the door to the conclave room. The game's more fun when you dress up, he replied. Something you obviously, he looked her up and down with a performative grimace, wouldn't understand. Rickter avoided formal wartime uniforms whenever possible. The stiff fabric and metals were heavy on her small frame. The boots that laced up almost to her knee made sitting uncomfortable, especially for long meetings like they were about to endure. Her grays, on the other hand, surrounded her and hid her shape. Designed to keep them hidden in almost any environment, a meeting seemed like the perfect place to wear them to fall right into the background. Plus, a drawstring waistband and warm lining for pants. With any luck, she could fall asleep at the table and no one would even notice. You're just jealous because you're too pale to pull off grays, Rickter jabbed. You look like a dull pile of old snow. She couldn't help but spread her arms, looking down at herself, and concede not only to the sentiment, but the laugh. You got me. Oh, Rickter, really? Kiraly Wilhelm commented as he joined them. You too? She asked. Are we exercising or deciding the future of the world? It warranted an attempt to look the part, I should think. Wilhelm poked as much for his own enjoyment as Alex's, who snickered beside him. My job is done, Rickter attempted to defend. Far from, the Kiraly warned. We meet their fire with fog and fury, Alex added. You've prepared them, Wilhelm confirmed with his most trusted advisor. The order is ordered, Alex replied. As Kiraly walked to his throne at the head of the table, Rickter saw the familiar spark in Alex's eye that she'd come to dread but respect. Mischievousness loomed. I bring to order this meeting to decide the fates of our beloved homelands, Kiraly Wilhelm started. Let us ensure equal and opportune participation from every corner of our collective principalities. The delay after collective was designed to agitate the usurpers, who insisted on being present, Abraham and X. When Kiraly Wilhelm and Alex began using the term, they were quickly presented a decree from the Isle of the Gods, which forbade its future use to reference the souls of those under Kiraly Wilhelm's rule. Upon receiving it, Alex immediately plotted ways to use the word collective as often as possible in every other form to irritate the humans. From the old lands commonly known as the Kiraly Sag der Voros Moha, who speaks? We do, Alex and Rickter said in unison. For the districts of the Pebbles, who speaks? I do, a young Nosko said proudly from his wheelchair. For the Constance Forest, who speaks? I, Constantine VIII, replied in his haggard, raspy voice as he stood with shaky knees but unshakable pride. For the great meadows of Lady's Lark, who speaks? I do, said Lady Aldelark. For the territories in the adjacent River Badlands, historically known as the Fakit Forest, who speaks? In reply, 3 males stood. The elected official, Brad der Ostenhark, started. I speak for all the feet who trod those lands. Then Drew Erideti Elenayas, the appointed military commander, appointed by Brad and decorated every bit as fancifully as Alex, said, I speak for their protection. And finally, Altan Abolshk stated simply, I do. For their neighbors to the south, separated by the ridges of the Rib Mountains, known to all as the Borjak Forest, who speaks? Again, 3 representatives stood, and again they spoke in order of cultural significance. The female began. I am Judge the Fair, newly appointed to my post. I speak on behalf of honor and order for Borjak and all of the collective. Judge did not have a clever end to her sentence. Yikes, thought Rickter. Thought we'd all at least get through the introductions before kicking the hornet's nest. Wilhelm, Alex, and Rickter thought simultaneously. And despite her looking directly at him, Abraham registered no reaction. Quickly continuing, I am Prince Rudolph, speaking on behalf of my subjects. Lastly, the most beautiful creature in the room, with her black hair twisted around the soul's crown, she said, I am the elected heart of the bourgeois souls. Their crown Princess Ophelia. For the Meleg, who speaks? I do, an old brassy woman said while standing and sitting back quickly. For the Lepsicot lands, who speaks? We do, two middle-aged Noskos stood and said. For our newest annexed territory, the Forgotten Forest, henceforth forgotten no more, who speaks? I do, Cole of Cliff's Edge said, smiling at Wilhelm and Alex in a simple acknowledgement of their influence on his presence and his willingness to do whatever might continue to improve his quite undeserved advancement. I do as well, his counterpart said abruptly before she sat. And for the Termeniki fold, the source of nourishment for us all, who speaks? The 4 guilds stood representing the elements. For water, for soil, for sun, for air. Then in unison, everyone who had raised their voice thus far joined to say, for all. For the lone, diverse tribes of the Rakhat forest, who speaks? A man cloaked in thick animal hides, wearing the horns of one atop his head, stood and said, I do, and as such confirm our independent status within our southern territories between Sulfar Fields and the plains. How many tribes do you claim? 24 tribes exist under 10 districts, each with their own individual system of rule. Do any here wish to challenge the sovereignty of these districts? Say aye. After a pause, Alex stood, allowing the full intimidation of his height and this moment to sit heavy on those in attendance. Then, forcing eye contact with each member, he opened his mouth, keeping it ajar for show. The impish smirk dimpled his left cheek slightly more than his right. Then, taking a deep, audible breath in, he paused more and performed the whole stunt one more time before saying, "I." Wide eyes gawked at him. Even the most beautiful female couldn't get him as hard as moments like this, and Rick would know. She'd seen him in every kind of situation, political arenas, battles, and bedrooms. The whole of the important known world lay at his feet awaiting his next word. I believe, our guests wish to challenge the sovereignty of the southern tribes, as stated clearly by their mere presence. Their quiet threat beats louder than our harshest artillery. He paused to give everyone a moment to look at Abraham and X with contempt before continuing. For 775 years, the forest has self-governed compliantly under Article 1 of Treaty 107. And yet, these two descend upon us from their Isle of the Gods, as they have so humbly named their small rock. Isolated by threats, they only scurry from their caves to visit during our time of celebration. They come to trade. Instead of our great togetherness, they offer us a wedge. Why? A claim we have disobeyed them. Our free nations have disobeyed how, I wonder? We have not united all tribes within the allotted boundaries they came here and imposed, but I cannot place all blame on them, the others. We agreed. Are we not obligated to adhere to our own acceptance? And as we've just heard, many tribes remain within these boundaries, not looking to be annexed, nor anyone at this table looking to change their minds. Perhaps togetherness is not all they seek to rid the forest of. Could it be their own regret for their forefathers' mistakes? After centuries, we have had but only one thing they value that they cannot seem to get their hands on. And that's but a rumor. A Mortadel child born in the forest. Our fertile lands give life to even the most hopeless clay. For this last statement, Alex looked directly at X. Speaking now directly to Abraham, Alex continued, "You see, when people come together, good happens. But you are resolute to splinter the Othani." Here, Alex used the Arbara word for life on 2 feet, the original term used before the humans began calling them Naski. It was part of Alex's larger plan to convince everyone that the forest acted on behalf of the planet, which desired to rid itself of the humans and their direct offspring. Instead of the premium put on more human blood like the sea believed, Alex bolstered low percentages as the true chosen and preferred specimen. It helped that his own number was only 16.3. Alex continued, putting the final brushstroke on his masterpiece. For we know what happens when the forest acts as one. Yes, we do, Abraham threatened, speaking their native Arbaro. At last, your threat found its voice, Alex concluded. Speaking in Dioparlo, Abraham stated plainly and X translated calmly, the directive remains clear and non-negotiable. You will determine which 2 territories to remove from the self-proclaimed collective. Lock the door and burn red smoke when you have finished. You have 4 days. When X had finished his translation, Abraham rose, folded his arms parallel within his robe's sleeves, and walked out the still open door. X's face read total indifference as he followed his father out of the room. As only the messenger of the South Tribe's intentions, the Rakat Forest delegate also excused himself. With representation confirmed, I hereby pronounce this conclave commenced, Kiraly Wilhelm said. To formalize the ritual, Alex went to the door, inserted the old stone key in the lock, and turned. No one would be allowed to exit or enter until resolution was found and the fire of the red moss lit.